What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom, and today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Nora. Nora, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Well, dear God, I don't know.
It's okay. So
high energy
on the spot.
What did you say, Tom?
It's a very high energy from you.
I don't know.
Okay.
So, Tom, since you
very well done.
Since you know Nora, how about you tell us like a little intro about Nora? What would you describe Nora as?
Kind of similar to last week. Nora's a big drinker in her free time. She calls herself Big Nora, as you'll see on her. I guess not a header; it's more of a footer. Not very into Twitter, so we're going with the nickname nowadays, Big Nor. Considers herself an aspiring powerlifter. Spends her mornings at 6 a.m. in the gym, and then spends the rest of her time being an accountant, which I'm sure she loves. Doesn't know much about UFC or really kind of sports in general, so it should be a good episode.
Yeah, hopefully Nora doesn't make our fans snora, but you know. No, I don't think she will. I think we're in for a good guest today. So we're going to start off with our locks. I got one lock from the prelims for you guys. I'm going with Montana De La Rosa. She's the last fight in the prelims. Great fighter. She's a really great wrestler, especially, you know, in this fight, definitely unmatched in wrestling. Ariane Lipski is a little bit more of a striker, but, you know, we've seen Montana De La Rosa at this point. She can do it on her feet, and she has a tendency to really bring her opponents to the ground. I believe she's coming into this fight at a -240, so that's really good parlay booster right there. So Montana De La Rosa, that's my prelim lock. Tom, you got any locks off the prelim for us?
Yeah, well, one quick thing is, you know, yes, you're right. I have her on Tapology at a -260 favorite. However, the fan predictions at a 1,600 fan prediction, 62% coming in on Lipski. So just an interesting, interesting note there for you. Personally, I like Marquand Amirkhani. His opponent, Kamwela Kirk, is taking this fight on late notice, who is, you know, a real solid guy, kind of a bigger guy, and he's taking it, you know, like I said, on 1 week's notice. So going, you know, having that weight cut is not something that, you know, necessarily spells a ton of success for him. Marquand, you know, he's fought some really big competition. He take down Shane Burgos. He took down Barbosa. He does have good grappling. Now, so does Kamwela Kirk. You may remember Kamwela Kirk, his last time in the UFC was against Billy Q. He had a really solid first round. He took down Billy Q, controlled him for a little bit, but Billy was able to reverse him. And then in the second round, I saw what I think is my first 10-7 round. Go back and watch that from their fight on the Dana White Contender Series. Billy Q absolutely put it on him. So he had spent the last 2 years outside of the UFC. This is his first fight back in. And, you know, I like Marquand Amirkhani for his grappling against a guy who is, you know, going to come in off of a hard weight cut. The way to beat Marquand really seems to be outlasting him. And, you know, going against a guy who's bigger, had a rough weight cut, you know, if you're a good grappler, it signals it really should be a win for Marquand. Kirk's only other fight, like I said, is against Billy Q, where after a good first round, he faded fast. Lots of body damage contributed to his gassing out, but, you know, he was basically TKO'd on his feet early in round 3. And in round 2, like I said, it was a 10-8 round, possibly even a 10-7 round. I think Marquand, with the experience, is going to see that. He's going to go after the body, even after, you know, much improved Kirk from that fight. But I have to go Marquand Amirkhani here. He's got the UFC experience. He is probably a better grappler. He's probably better on his feet. And, you know, he's used to the weight. He doesn't have to deal with the weight cut. He knew he had a fight coming. For all those reasons, I think Marquand on the prelims is going to be a good lock for you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really like Marquand there. Nora, do you have anything to say about our locks at all? Is there anything that you picked out there that you like or that you don't like?
All right. Tom's game. What were the two people?
So it's Marquand Amirkhani versus Kamwela Kirk. Those are the two fighters. And I think Marquand Amirkhani is a lock. And just so you and anyone at home who may not know, I know our producer Alyssa didn't know when I first told her, a lock basically means, hey, we're going to make predictions and we're going to tell you who we think we're going to win. But we could be wrong, and we know that we're going to be wrong. Some we feel more confident on than others. A lock means, hey, I feel very confident on this person to the point where I'm going to put my money on them, and I think you should too.
Yeah, I mean, I personally bet on like almost everyone that we talk about on this show that I end up picking. But yeah, my locks are where I throw the big money or I add them into my parlay because I'm not worried about it tanking the whole thing. So, I don't know. You got anything for us, Nora, on those?
All right, Tom said something about a weight cut. Who lost weight?
The guy so Marquand knew he had a fight.
Yeah.
The guy he was fighting had to pull out about a week and a half ago. So Kenwella Kirk. Now keep in mind, Nora, all of these guys are on a weight cut. And this is really good because we think a lot of people watching this are maybe UFC fans, but that may not be the case. So for anyone watching, every fighter, just about every fighter, has to do what's called a weight cut in order to make weight. So that means if the weight class is 155, that means you have to weigh 155. There's a 1 pound buffer, so call it 156 the Friday before the fight. Friday morning before the fight, you have to weigh within a 1 pound range of that upper maximum. So if it's a 155 weight class, you have to weigh at least 156 or at most 156. A lot of these guys will walk around outside of like a fight camp at their like normal walking around weight, like what I weigh right now, what you weigh, what Keith weighs. We'll walk around if we say 155. Those guys are 170, 185. They're much bigger than what they fight at. Then they go on this 8-week camp and they bring themselves down to probably about 10 to 20 pounds outside of the weight class, and they cut the rest. It's water weight. So they have to go in the sauna. They're doing a lot of cardio. They're going in baths, and they're trying to drain themselves out of all of that water so they can get down to their lightest possible weight. And that takes a lot out of you. So a guy who weighs maybe, if he's fighting in this case, I believe they're fighting at 145 or 135. So if they're fighting at 135, Marquand Amirkhani probably is going to step in the cage closer to 150. Kenwella Kirk will probably step in there closer to 155, 160. So what that means is Kenwella Kirk has to go on this weight cut a week in advance. He knows about it. So it's going to be harder to cut that weight than for Marquand, who had already had this. Now, Kenwella Kirk has had a fight recently. It just wasn't in the UFC. That spells challenges for a numerous amount of other reasons. You take a lot of shots when you're in a fight, and then if you turn around quickly, it's not like your brain had a chance to, recharge. So I think, that could potentially hurt him as well. So, yeah, he doesn't have to go as far because he's already at his fighting weight, kind of. But when you take a fight on 1 week's notice versus most of these guys have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to get down to that weight, I think that spells problems, especially when you're the bigger guy and the guy you're fighting against is a really good grappler, better grappler than you, which means he's going to be able to take you down, and you're probably going to get tired faster because your body's not as conditioned, not as prepared for that from that weight cut.
Yeah. What's up?
I think I'm still going to go with the guy that took the lesser weight cut.
So the guy I picked, Marquand Amirkhani.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fair pick, yeah. I mean, if you're going to base it on weight cut alone, which actually isn't a bad way to base your –
it's a good way.
Yeah, because, you're going to be more dehydrated going into a fight if you have to cut a lot of that weight and everything like that. There's that great photo of Conor when he was fighting at featherweight, and he looks like an absolute skeleton for weigh-in, and then the very next night he comes in looking like normal Conor McGregor again. So, and you become massively dehydrated. It can take a big impact on your body. So if you don't have to cut as much weight and it's close to your normal walking around weight, it can be super beneficial for you in that fight. So we'll move on to the main card now. We got Tom Breese versus Antonio Arroyo. This is a tough fight to pick, as a lot of these are, at least in my opinion. Tom might disagree with me on that. But the only two things that I can really find to say about Arroyo are that he's big. This is an evenly matched fight in terms of size, length, reach, and everything like that. And then Arroyo really isn't a great grappler. And that's where Tom Breese struggles, really, is against good grappling. Against bad grapplers, he does a good job of getting them on their back, or even when he's on his back, and putting them into vulnerable positions, using his striking down there, to just kind of put him to sleep. Tom Breese has way better cardio in this fight. He's still a young guy. He's 29 years old. He does struggle with the jitters, and he does get a little bit of anxiety in those fights. But I like Tom Breese here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, he gets those jitters, but it's usually against big names. He lost to Sean Strickland. He lost to Omar Akhmedov, which are both big names. And, guys that have went on to do pretty solid in the UFC even now. Antonio Arroyo doesn't really have any wins to his record, and it's been largely disappointing. And, they brought him in because he kind of looked like Thiago Alves. This guy, he's huge looking. He's definitely big. Like, I think he could probably do 205, to be honest with you. He is an okay grappler. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he doesn't really use it that effectively. He lost to Deron Winn, who was 5'6", and at 6'3", that's just not a good look for you. He also lost to Alex Muniz, who we saw just break what's his name? Bicep.
Yeah, Jacare Souza.
Yeah, he just broke Jacare's arm. So, I mean, listen, I wasn't quick to give Muniz a lot of credit for that, but listen, going there against a guy named Jacare and coming out with a win, regardless of how you do it, still says something about you. So, against a good guy there, Deron Winn, not a phenomenal fighter, but also not a phenomenal showing there by Antonio Arroyo. I'm just not high on Arroyo. I have yet to see him get it done against anybody meaningful. And Tom Breese, he gets those jitters, but against people who are like better than him, who are names. And Antonio Arroyo really just isn't. Tom Breese is, very deep into boxing, and he can tell you just about anything you want to know about the sport of boxing, past boxers. Arroyo has basically been dominated on the floor by Muniz and Winn, like I said, with less than incredible striking. He calls himself, a great striker, but it's really been less than dominant. A solid to above average guy, but I think Breese has a solid ground game, nothing crazy, but I think it's definitely more solid than Antonio Arroyo. He did almost submit Omar, at the beginning of that fight. He had him in an armbar pretty, Omar did get out of it, but, he had some interesting attempts in that fight, and after some initial struggles, he did look good. He's a finisher, and Arroyo goes to decision, the majority of the time. I think Breese is better standing and on the ground, plus Arroyo won't really have, a size advantage in this fight, which is kind of what his staple is, what his claim to fame. Granted, it hasn't really worked for him. So for all those reasons, Breese is another lock of mine.
So you said that Arroyo is 6'3" and lost to someone that's 5'6"?
Yes, sir.
That's crazy. All right. That just makes me that much more confident in Tom Breese in this fight because, yeah, if you're going to be 6'3", you have to know how to maintain your distance. And if you have a little guy that's going in there against you and finishing you or potentially just getting a win, you don't know how to use your length. You don't know how to use that reach. So way more confident in Tom Breese after hearing that from you, Tom. I'm not going to call.
He lost a unanimous decision and got taken down 12 times.
Yeah, I'm not going to call Tom Breese a lock, but he definitely feels like about as close to a lock as you can get in this fight. Yeah, I like him in here. And, yeah, like you said, Arroyo, bad grappling. Tom Breese, not great grappling, but when he goes in there against bad grapplers, he really does take advantage of the situation. Nora, do you have anything for us on that?
Well, if I am going to make a bet, it sounds like Tom Breese might have to be my lock this week.
Okay.
Tom, help me figure that one out.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Tom made some great points there. So the next one we got Dusko Todorovic versus Gregory Rodrigues. This is another tough fight to pick, in my opinion. I thought Tom Breese was tough. Tom convinced me on that. Let's see if he can do the same here. The only things that I really have on these guys are that Todorovic really doesn't do a good job moving his head around in the cage. He does tend to get pieced up a little bit, and we've seen that that's a major hole in his game. But then you have a guy like Gregory Rodrigues who fought in the Contender Series, got KO'd in the first round, somehow still secured a contract. And he has a bad record against bad opponents. Tough to say who's going to come out on top in this one. It is kind of a pick'em fight. The one lock that I do have on this one, and this is a lock, is the fight to finish inside the distance. We don't have odds up on that yet, but if you're looking to lock this in today, You can take the under 1.5 rounds at -102. I really like that in this fight. Both of these guys are powerful in their own right. And then they also do a bad job of head movement and maintaining their chin. So I'm liking the under here. What do you think, Tom? Who do you got?
Yeah, this one is one I just kind of want to stay away from, largely because there's not a lot of UFC experience really for either of the two guys. I went on ESPN Plus trying to do some film study on either of them, and there wasn't any fights to watch there. Rodrigues, his nickname is RoboCop, which I think is pretty cool. He's a slight underdog as far as the sports books are concerned, but on Tapology, he's a large favorite. RoboCop Rodrigues is a slight underdog at plus 135, but only 18% of fans, 1,400 fans are voting. Only 18% have their money on Rodrigues. So Tororovic sounds like a really good bet for this one. And, you know, for those reasons, I have to go Tororovic. But listen, I don't really want to pick this fight. I wouldn't bet this fight. And honestly, I don't even know if I wouldn't even count this one as a pick from me. I wouldn't count it towards my record. It's really a pick-em one from a few unknown guys. You know, maybe in a couple weeks or a couple months or years, we'll know more from them. But yeah, I'm gonna stay away from this one to be honest with you.
Yeah, weird choice putting it on the main card. I don't really get the move, but we did see last week with like Jared Vandera and Justin Tafa, two guys that you haven't really seen too much from yet, but they do know what they're doing over at the UFC. You know, Sean Shelby and Dana White are great matchmakers, so we could be in for a good one. And for that reason, I'm still sticking with the under. I think that they're throwing this one on there because they're predicting an early knockout. What do you think about that under, Tom?
Like I said, I wasn't able to watch film study on really any of these guys. And to be honest with you, I don't feel comfortable making picks, you know, without seeing it for myself. So, you know, I know you do a lot of good studying there, Keith. So I will let you go. Here's one thing I will say. Gregory Rodrigues does train with Jacare Souza. You know, I think he comes out of a very solid gym. So, you know, that being said, he's not a very heavy underdog, so I don't see there being a ton of value here on a pick-em fight. So, again, I'm going to stay away from it. And, you know, happy to make fun of you if you get it wrong, Keith, and praise you if you get it right.
I encourage it. I'll take all the feedback. And, you know, as always, if you want to make fun of me if I get it wrong, or if you want to, you know, tell me I won you some money, my Twitter handle will be right here. So make sure to @ me on there, and all feedback is welcome. Good, bad, we'll take it. You know, so Nora, you got anything for us on there? Or I know that's a tough one. We didn't really give you many things to work with on that.
Yeah, most of it went over my head, but does the other guy have a nickname?
He does have a nickname.
Let's hear it.
His nickname is
not as good
Thunder.
as RoboCop.
Dusko Thunder Todorovic versus Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues.
RoboCop's so much cooler.
I feel like RoboCop's not even that good either. I feel like Big Nora's a better nickname than both of those.
Well, when you make your UFC debut, we'll let them know that that's your nickname to roll with.
I'll be the wild card in this fight. I'll just show up.
She'll show up with a chair, and Jerry the King Lawler will be on ringside announcement.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the next one then. We got Santiago Ponzinibbio and Miguel Baeza. I'm taking Miguel Baeza here. This is a fight that I really like. You know, first off, Miguel trains with one of my favorite fighters. He trains with Colby Covington. He is undefeated. He's got extremely fast hands, and he is a young guy. He does appear to be a future contender, and this could be a setup fight for him to, you know, move him up to that next level. Ponzinibbio does have a good resume against some good fighters. He's got a good record. But one thing we do have to keep in mind with Ponzinibbio is that he took 3 years off due to a leg injury, which, if Miguel is smart, he's going to go in there in first round, attack the legs of Ponzinibbio. So he did have a really good run there for a bit, but when he came back from that 3-year stint away from the UFC, he got KO'd. Now he's back 4 months later, which is a very quick turnaround time. His chin definitely and his brain have definitely not recovered from being KO'd. And the public seems to be going with Ponzinibbio here. I mean, you could tell me I'm wrong on Tapology, but one thing I always like to do, I'm doing this with Montana De La Rosa. I'm going to do it here with Miguel Baeza. I'm going to fade the public because if the public is telling me Ponzinibbio is going to win, they're usually wrong. So I'm riding with Miguel Baeza here.
Yeah, 67% of the 1,650 votes, 67% are coming in Baeza with a large portion on KO, TKO. Listen, Ponzinibbio had a lot of good wins, but he came back after that 3-year leg off, and it wasn't just for that leg. It might have been 2 years, but it wasn't just for the leg. He had some illnesses. He broke his hand. So there was a lot of issues there, and sometimes when guys take that amount of time off, they can train and work on their game and come back better, maybe have a little bit of ring rust, but this isn't really the case here. The guy wasn't able to train with broken hand, messed up legs, illnesses, life-threatening issues, not able to be in the cage, taking that layoff. Then you come back against a guy like Li Jingliang. Like, again, he's not a bad fighter, but he lost to Neil Magny, who's, on the upper echelon. But Li Jingliang is kind of in that 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 20 range, and as a guy who Santiago Ponzinibbio was being looked at to maybe face Kamaru Usman early in his career, like back in 2018 for the belt, is really kind of fallen off here. And like you said, Miguel Baeza training with Colby Covington. He goes to submissions after he has a guy hurt on the ground, which shows that he has a really solid fight IQ. I like that a lot. I'm going to have to go with Miguel Baeza for a numerous amount of reasons. However, I'm not going to lock it in. Earlier in the week, I thought I was going to make this one of my locks. I'm not going to lock it in on the sheer fact that, hey, maybe we're all wrong about Ponzinibbio. Maybe he was able to train. Maybe he is the same guy, and he just had an issue with ring rust. We've seen that before with guys taking a large layoff, coming back, having one bad fight, and then returning to their old. So, I'm not going to make this a lock, but I do feel very strongly about Baeza.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that, and that was one of my big points I wanted to make, is that Baeza, unlike a lot of other dudes, when he rocks somebody and gets them to the ground, he doesn't just go in there for, ground and pound. He does look for a way to lock up a submission, which is much smarter than what you see a lot of other people in the UFC doing. And Ponzinibbio, in my opinion, I do think he's down and out. I think he's going out the way of a Tony Ferguson or a Cowboy Cerrone, where he did have high expectations at one point in his career. Now he's being used to set up these young guys that are going to make their way up to the belt. Nora, you got anything for us on there? You gonna rock with us on Baeza, or are you gonna fade it on Ponzinibbio?
There are a couple of injuries. Were they all the same person, or did one get knocked out and the other break his leg?
So all were the same guy. He broke his leg, broke his hands, had some life-threatening injuries, had a 2-year layoff, comes back, got knocked out, and then now 4.5 months later, he's actually back in the cage before the guy who knocked him out, which doesn't spell positivity for his longevity, for his brain, for not being able to get. And once you get knocked out, Nora, you would relate to this. It's kind of like when you black out a lot, you black out easier. Your brain's like, oh, I get it. This is what we're supposed to be doing now. So he gets knocked out in January, and now is coming back January 16th, now coming back in June, 4.5 months later. Your brain hasn't healed from that concussion. So it's probably going to have a high likelihood to want to turn off quicker than it typically would.
Yeah, he must have been hit real hard, because it doesn't make any sense for him to come back this soon.
I don't know if my brain works exactly that way, Tom. I think it's more of at this point, my brain knows when I'm drinking with Tom, and at that point is when I need to black out.
Oh, was that
out of desperation?
I'm going to go with the other guy.
Oh, okay. Taking Ponzinibbio.
Wait, the guy that didn't get, knocked out.
Oh, okay.
He means Baeza. She's picking with us.
Yeah.
Baeza. All right. So you're rolling with us on that one. I do appreciate that, because I think we'll all be right on Saturday night. Next fight up, we have Roman Dolidze versus Laureano Staropoli. This is another tough one to pick. This is a good card. I just think Roman Dolidze is too big and too strong for Laureano Staropoli, but he does gas out, and he takes a lot of damage. The reason I don't like Laureano Staropoli in here is because he took this fight on late notice and is moving up a weight cut. Not even moving up. He's just walking in there at his normal weight. We talked about weight cuts before. He's not making any weight cut really for this. And we saw that with Cowboy Cerrone, not to go back to him too often, but when you step in there against those heavier guys, they do hit a lot harder. Roman Dolidze, this is where he fights. He's a middleweight fighter. So for those reasons, I'm going to take him here. I kind of like him for a submission. He does have a few on his resume, but I'm not going to lock that in just yet. I'm not sure what the odds are on there. I really would like Dolidze to manage his stamina well in this fight. Being that Staropoli gets to walk in there at normal weight, I don't think that stamina is going to be an issue for him. So that's the only downside to Dolidze that I see in this fight. But regardless, I'm going to still roll with him. This is a pick for me.
Yeah, this is actually a lock for me, and that's Roman Dolidze. 89% of the 1,500 votes are coming in on him. He's a minus 140 favorite via Tapology. He's a Georgian fighter, and you can't pick against the Georgian fighters. Not nowadays. They come hard. So that's one thing for him. Also, his last fight, he technically he lost, but I went back and I watched that fight, and I'm not so quick to score that as a loss to him. It was very, very close. I think he beat Trevor Giles, to be honest with you, but that was his first fight at middleweight. Before that, this guy was a light heavyweight, and he looks like a light heavyweight. And in his first attempt to go to middleweight, he had a great showing. He did get a little tired at the end, but I think, he'll have a better weight cut this time. So I think that, his longevity will be a little bit better. This guy almost definitely was on steroids at one point in his career because he's absolutely gigantic. Nora, you can commiserate. But Roman Dolidze, he's the bigger guy, came down from light heavyweight. I thought he beat Trevin Giles his last fight. He did take too many shots after going for a heel hook. And the knock on him is that, he doesn't have a great fighter IQ because he did try to go for those heel hooks. And it turned around that, he was getting hit in the face by Trevin Giles. And I think that actually ended up losing him the fight because he tried to commit to that heel hook too hard and was just getting popped in the face. And to the judges, more damage was done by the shots than by the actual heel hook. But I think, people are going to say, oh, that's a low fighter IQ. I think that, in the little bit of time since he's had that fight against Giles, which if I can stall for a quick second, that was in March. So, May, June, give him 2.5 months of fighting. He didn't get knocked out, so I think his brain's going to be okay. But, I think in those 2 months, what you're going to work on is, hey, if the heel hook's not immediately there, you don't have it knocked in, you're taking punches, let it go. I don't think that that's something that is terribly difficult to train yourself on. Same thing with, the cardio. You give yourself 2 more months, have a better weight cut. Don't rise up too much after the fight. Kind of stay, in and around that middleweight frame. I think it's going to be a little bit better for him. Let me see where I have in my notes. I think he'll learn from that. I think he'll have a better gas tank wise in this second welterweight fight, but not really a bad tank. He was still throwing shots and still fighting hard. He was still fighting to win that Trevin Giles fight. Staropoli's, this is his first fight up at welter after missing weight against Tim Means in his last fight. And he had lost his fight before that as well. And this one, it wasn't like a close fight where I thought he could have won. He absolutely got annihilated by Tim Means, and that's really it. And he gave, I think 4 pounds to Tim Means, which means you really, really missed your weight cut. He, like you said, he's coming in at his regular walking around weight. It's not like he's going to gain so much weight. And we've seen it in fights before when you go in at your walking around weight, just like Izzy Adesanya going in as walking around weight against Jan Blachowicz, a guy who's in that weight class and cuts to it. Jan Blachowicz is a guy who probably, if he wanted to, could fight at heavyweight. So I think we're going to see a same effect there where Dolidze is going to be able to use more effective ground game because he's bigger. He's going to be able to back Laureano Staropoli up against the fence. I think he probably even has a better stand-up game than him. Staropoli, is kind of unorthodox. He's got solid takedown defense, but, he had been taken down a few times by Salikov after a few kicks that he ended up catching. I think the weight of Dolidze is going to allow him to lean on him, maybe take him down. And I think overall experience at the weight class is really going to help Dolidze here. Like I said, I thought he beat Trevin Giles in the first fight at welterweight, and I expect him to look better here. Also, Staropoli, like you said, taking the fight on short notice. And he does a lot of spinning, high-effort shots, which could hurt the longevity of him and his energy in the fight. The first thing I led off with, I can't pick against a Georgian fighter, especially when they have a 5-inch reach advantage. Roman Dolidze, lock it in.
Yeah, those Georgian fighters are really hot right now. You look at guys like Giga Chikadze. He's a big favorite of ours over here. You can't pick against those guys from Georgia. They are tough. They're good. And they usually come out with a win. So I'm rolling with Roman Dolidze here. My only concern is really just that gas tank. But, I didn't even know Staropoli, he loves those spinning strikes. And, yeah, that can really gas you out pretty fast if you're not super prepared for it or you're not running a lot. And taking this on short notice, he didn't have a full fight camp to really get that cardio back in gear. So Roman Dolidze, I won't go as far as you to say that he's a lock in this fight. I don't feel that confident in him there, but I'm happy to support you, and I'll be throwing some money on Dolidze there. What do you got for us, Nora?
This one's easy. I'm going for the Rich Piana type man. Rest in peace to a legend.
Yes.
True hero.
Yes, inspiration to us all. Okay, so you're going with Dolidze then.
Sure.
All right. Sure. I like that you said that he might have been on steroids, Tom. I will never accuse anyone of PEDs unless it's been confirmed, like our boy TJ Dillashaw. But
it's a different PED. That doesn't make you jack. That just gives you the energy to work out harder in terms of cardio so you can cut more weight. And he took that to get down to what, 135 or 125? Roman Dolidze was a very solid light heavyweight that now is at middleweight, and the guy is just gigantic. Listen, we record these on a Wednesday, so it's very possible Roman Dolidze, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this cut is harder for him, and maybe he does have a problem getting to 185, but I'm thinking if I'm him and I cut down to 185 for my first fight at March 20th, now on June 5th, if I wanted to turn around this fast and I wanted to make a name for myself and I wanted to avenge a loss, listen, he was undefeated before that. So if I want to avenge a loss that I don't think I lost, I'm not going to go out, have a couple cheeseburgers, and balloon back up to 205 to have to cut back down. I'm going to try and stay around 195, maybe 200, and then I can cut back down to 185 fairly easily.
So he's on that trenbolone and testosterone mix. Gotcha. All right. So the next one up, we got Walt Harris versus Marcin Tybura. I'm going to let you go first on this one, Tom. This is a tough one to pick, but I might pick against you here.
Yeah, these next two fights I was agonizing against. Listen, Walt Harris, everybody wants to root for Walt Harris, nicknamed Big Ticket. A couple years ago, he lost his daughter and then came back against Alistair Overeem, had a really bad adrenaline dump, and got KO'd. It was really sad to see. In his fight following that, he came back against Alexander Volkov, showed a little bit better of an endurance, but nothing crazy. Basically, here's the deal with Walt Harris. If he doesn't KO you within the first 2 minutes of the fight, you have a really good chance. And Marcin Tybura has taken some big shots, most notably Sergey Spivak, Ben Rothwell, and a guy that we're all afraid of, a guy who cuts to 265 and almost misses weight, the former All-Pro defensive end from the Dallas Cowboys, Greg Hardy. The Prince of War, he calls himself, and he throws shots as somebody who would call themselves the Prince of War. He throws big shots, and Marcin Tybura took those shots in that first round, and then the second round came back, landed some, picked him up, got his hands under the butt, picked him up, dumped him on his head, and finished him with ground and pound. I like Tybura to kind of have the same approach here. Let Walt Harris kind of gas out in the first, kind of use your chin a little bit. The thing that does scare me is, you guys who use their chin, eventually their chin betrays them. Now, the good thing about Marcin Tybura is, he's not that old. Born in 1985, do some quick math. He's, in his mid-30s. Is that right? 95, 05, 15. That would make him 36. So, yeah, the chin could go, but they are the heavyweights. So, you never know. Walt Harris at 37. Tybura has the reach advantage. Walt has the height advantage, but as our friend Pat Ball said, height doesn't matter. Reach is what matters. So, listen, I think this fight's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be Walt Harris is going to KO him in the first few minutes, or it's going to go on. Marcin Tybura is going to ground and pound him and TKO him later on in the fight, or maybe win a decision. He's got that Polish power. He's a minus 165 favorite. 74% of the money coming in on Tybura, but 54% of that is by decision, and then the other 34% is by KO or TKO. So I really feel confident on Tybura. Not enough to make it a lock. I haven't decided if I want to bet on it yet. But like I said, Walt Harris, he has that flurry early on. And then outside of that, it's not too much. I think if Tybura can maybe hit him a couple times to the body, it's going to exacerbate that tank, and he'll be able to finish him in the second or third.
Yeah, that's one thing that we definitely have to take notice of here is that Tybura does have a good chance of ending Harris by body strikes because he has been beat by body strikes before. He's been put out by a couple of good shots to the midsection.
And let me just say this.
Yeah.
Marcin Tybura was in there with Derek Lewis. He did get finished in the third round, but he took a lot of shots from Derek Lewis in the first round and walked through him. To be able to get out of the first round with Derek Lewis is a lot. And if, you're going to gas out in the third, well, that's fine if you're against Walt Harris because you just have to outlast him. And I think Walt Harris is going to gas out a lot sooner than Marcin Tybura.
Yeah, Walt Harris has worse gas mileage than a Ram 1500, which is very bad on gas economy if you are looking to buy a new truck. But Marcin Tybura, he does ride out the storm. Like you mentioned, KO'd by Derek Lewis, but Derek Lewis did smack him right on the chin in the first round of that fight, and it was a shot that would have put a lot of guys out. A guy like Chris Blades would have gone down to that shot, and Tybura outlasted that. He did get KO'd in the third, but he's not fighting Derek Lewis this week. Derek Lewis is going up for the belt pretty soon, potentially, and that's not who Walt Harris is. But I do kind of like Walt Harris to get that KO in the first round, which I believe is plus 500 right now. Because Marcin Tybura, when you watch him block, he only blocks with one arm and still throws strikes. It's a little strange to look at. It's very, very unorthodox when you're, just looking at MMA on a whole and how guys, block and then throw strikes. But he does survive damage well. This is really a tough one. I don't know how to go on this one. But because of that plus 500 line for a KO in the first, I'm going to have to pick against you here. I'm going to stake that. I'm not even going to take Walt Harris straight. But I'm going to put the money, a little bit of money, just sprinkle some on Walt Harris for that first round KO. I feel kind of good about it. I feel like they may be setting up one of these guys to move on a little bit further. They do want to shuffle things around in the heavyweight division a little bit. And Walt Harris does have a story that you can get behind. So with all those things and a little bit of fan bias, when you have those stories that you can really relate to and, they make you want the guy win. I'm going to go with Walt Harris here. KO first round. Not super confident in it, but I do like that line. Nora, what do you have for us there?
I think, in my professional opinion, I'm going to have to go with Tybura.
Okay. Fair enough.
Any reasoning behind that?
Well, I feel like the logic here is kind of like dodgeball. So, when I play dodgeball, I don't try to, get in there. I just kind of try and dodge them all until I'm the last one left, and that's when I lose. So I feel like if you could dodge the knockout in the first round and, if that's, the only thing the other guys got going for them, then maybe you just dodge them until the end, and then you get in there.
Okay. That's totally fair.
That's going to be Tybura's game plan, in my opinion. Also,
Tybura can do that.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And when I went back and I watched the Derek Lewis fight, he would take a big shot and then he would clinch up and put him up against the cage kind of until he, got his wits about him. And I don't think Walt does train at ATT, so anything's possible here. But, I think I like Tybura in this one. I'm not going to make it a lock. I am probably going to bet on it. It is a full-fledged pick, so I'll take that one to the bank. But, I like Tybura. But listen, Keith, you're exactly right. I would take Tybura to win by decision and maybe sprinkle a half unit on Walt Harris to win in the first.
Yeah, that's how I'm feeling. It's Tybura. I personally
win the first by KO.
Yeah, win the first by KO. There's no other way that he's going to do that. If Tybura can find a way to outlast that, take the damage again, he's going to get the W in the third round or by decision. But your chin can only last for so long. How many shots can you take like that? And Walt Harris, he trains at ATT, so I do like that for him. They do prepare those guys and women that come out of that gym with great game plans. And maybe they've been working on his cardio a little bit. Who knows? It's tough when you're 37 to really whip something like that into shape. But Walt Harris plus 500. I can't go against that line. You know, it's so nice. It's such a nice payout. And if it happens, it's going to be such a beautiful KO. I'll be getting up out of my chair, screaming, probably knocking over somebody's drink. So Walt Harris for me, by a first round KO only, not taking a money line, because if it does leave the first and he gets gassed, it's Tybura's ball game. So yeah, you're right. I think that both of our picks, it could go either way on this one. If you're watching this at home right now, take that into account, bet responsibly. But yeah, I think that's the way to go for both of us. I think both of those picks are really solid. So for the next fight, we got Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. And I see the face that you're making, Tom, already. I feel the exact same way. But I'm going to have to roll with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This is a guy that I like him. I didn't like his last performance against Cyril Gane. I thought it was way too conservative. But he is a very good counterpuncher. He does kind of sit back and wait for guys to attack him. And that's why that Cyril Gane fight was so boring, was because the two of them were waiting for someone to really advance and throw a counter strike. He was beat by Alexander Overeem. He did bounce back and win after that. He lost against Cyril Gane. He's got it in the cards to come back and bounce back with a win against Sakai here. He does have great KO power, but I do have a lock on this one. And that's for this fight to go over 2.5 rounds. That's currently at minus 105. I like that because of the conservative style of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and also because Augusto Sakai isn't the guy to run after you and hit you with KO power. So I'm locking in that over rounds right now. When it comes to Augusto Sakai, I just can't trust him here because he has too many holes in his defense, and against a guy like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, it just doesn't fare well. You know, he's a seasoned fighter. He's one of the best kickboxers in the heavyweight division. And if Augusto does throw a lazy strike or something coming over the top that exposes his chin too much, Jairzinho is going to take big advantage of that and potentially get a knockout win over Sakai here. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, this one's really, really tough, man. They both recently fought Alistair Overeem. Rozenstruik was losing to Reem until he landed that punch that severed his lip, and ultimately won the fight. But they didn't knock him out. I mean, if you go back and you watch it, you know, he hits the cage, but Reem didn't get KO'd. The ref just kind of stopped. And I don't know how quick he saw that his lip was dangling, but, you know, you obviously can't continue to fight with that thing like that. So, you know, I'm not quick to say he KO'd him, right? Then he lost to Ngannou, happens, right? Comes back, beats Dos Santos convincingly, and then was too afraid to go after Cyril Gane. So my thought is, you know, maybe he'll pick up his you know, intensity and want to come out and want to fight and want to strike. But the thing is, Jairzinho is the counter striker, and that doesn't spell a lot of success for Sakai, a guy who comes in there and throws multiple shots. However, Sakai probably, I mean, they both have solid cardio. I'd probably maybe give it to Rozenstruik with the better cardio because he can knock people out in the later rounds, 5th round, 4th round knockouts. Sakai does get tired. However, Sakai's going to have the better cage clinch game. He's going to have the better grappling game. He's going to have the better ground and pound. So, listen, this is a really, really tough fight. When Sakai lost to Overeem in the first few rounds, he was actually beating Overeem like quite bad. He was putting it on him. Like he was kicking the shit out of Alistair Overeem. And let me pull up this fight so I can give you a little bit more accuracy on it. He lost that fight in the 5th round due to elbows. Wow. So he didn't even really get knocked out from elbows. It was more or less that they were just really, really aggressive elbows, and the ref couldn't bear to watch it. And it was a good stoppage. I'm not criticizing it at all. However, you know, Augusto Sakai was putting it on him until Overeem went to, you know, put him on the ground. He doesn't have to worry about that against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So I'm going to pick Sakai by the slimmest of margins. I could see this going either way. It's really a toss-up. I guess I'm betting on the fact that Sakai is going to be wise to Jairzinho's counterpunching ability. He's going to throw maybe a couple body things, protect his head, come in there, get him on the clinch, take him down to the ground, and try to use that ground and that grappling and that clinch game to wear on him and bank a few rounds and keep yourself protected from the power of Rozenstruik, because we haven't really seen Rozenstruik prove himself, on the ground or really even able to, stop takedowns. So I'm going to have to say Sakai with like 51% confidence.
Yeah, I do want to correct myself from before. You got it right. Jairzinho did beat Overeem. I said he lost to him. It was Sakai that lost to Overeem.
Yeah.
But
when you watch those fights, they both had basically opposite. Like, if you watch everything but the time that each of them were finished, you would have thought that Rozenstruik lost to Reem, and you would have thought Sakai beat Reem. So kind of the opposite situations.
Yeah, if you saw everything but the finish, that's definitely the way that you would think about it. I like Jairzinho here basically because of what I said before. It's that counter-striking ability, and against Cyril Gane, he was almost too conservative, but I do think against a guy like Augusto Sakai, who's going to come in there, you said he's going to throw some combos. Maybe he will be wise to the counter-punching ability, but I think Jairzinho, being that he's so good at kickboxing, he's just going to find a way to land one right on Sakai's chin and put him to sleep. I'm not calling a knockout here. If it goes to the cards, then Sakai, with the advantage in grappling and takedowns, will probably win it. But I kind of like Jairzinho to finish this fight at some point. It's a bounce-back win. We mentioned he doesn't really lose 2 in a row, and he did just lose by decision to Cyril Gane. Maybe because of the way that fight played out, and because of how boring it was, and B, how subpar his performance was against Cyril Gane, a newer guy. He'll come out and be slightly more aggressive. It's a tough one, but I am sticking with that over because these are two guys that their fights go late. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's not the most aggressive, at least in the past. So I can't see this being an early finish. At 2.5 rounds, I really like it, -105. Tom, do you agree with that, or would you disagree?
At 2.5, you're taking the over on 2.5 rounds?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm looking at Rozenstruik's last fights. Against Albini, he finished him in the second round. Against Alan Crowder, finished him in the first. Against Andrei Arlovsky, finished him in the first. Overeem, that was a fifth. Ngannou, he got finished in the first. JDS, he finished him in the second. Cyril went to decision.
Right.
I don't know. That's a toss-up for me.
Yeah, we got to look at how far into the second round he finished those guys because, you get those extra 2 minutes there and your money. So we gotta look at that exact timing. But
it's split. It's split.
Right.
The JDS, you would have hit the over on 2.5. On Junior Albini, you would hit the under. So that gives you what? 3 to 4 quality. Okay. Yeah, when you look at quality of guys, over on Cyril Gane, over on JDS, under on Francis, but that's Francis. Francis is no Sakai, or Sakai is no Francis, rather. Overeem, you would hit the over. Arlovsky's the under because of those. Yeah, I think that's probably a solid one. And given that Sakai's probably not going to be as willing to stand there. Listen, like we said, Rozenstruik is a counter puncher, which means for you, Nora, it means I'm going to throw some combos and you're just waiting to counter my shots and land a big one. So Rozenstruik's not going to fire shots unless Sakai fires shots first, and that's kind of Sakai's MO, is that he likes to fire first. He likes to come forward. He likes to throw combos. Basically, I'm betting that Sakai can push Rozenstruik up against the cage, land enough combos before getting hit with that counter strike. Sakai has had a good chin as of relatively late. And let's look at how old Sakai is. Born in 91, so he's 29 years old, so I wouldn't expect his chin to go just yet. That makes me feel a little bit better about picking Sakai.
Yeah, I mean, with his chin being good, and Jairzinho is very, very conservative, sitting back. Sakai just doesn't have that knockout power. I still feel good about that over. I think it'll hit. I wouldn't say – did I say it was a lock before? I don't know. You kind of got me to go back on that a little bit. But I'm still going to put that in today because I think those lines are probably going to move a little bit. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Rozenstruik's last fight against Cyril Gane and just how much he sat back and waited for stuff. And they're going to look at that and say, maybe that over is a good pick. So you might see those lines moving a little bit. But like you mentioned, Jairzinho's weak point is getting put up against the fence because he doesn't have a great grappling advantage here. So if Sakai can find a way to do that to him, it's Sakai's fight for sure.
Yeah, basically a near even line. Tapology has minus 105 for Sakai, minus 120 for Rozenstruik. Nora, just want to let you know, Sakai, he doesn't have a nickname. Jairzinho Rozenstruik's nickname is Biggie Boy. I figured you would appreciate that. And 80% of the votes, of the 1,700 votes, are coming in on Biggie Boy. 87% of those are by KO. Only 20% on Sakai. And of that 20%, 54% are by decision.
There's more people out there. What do you got for us, Nora? What do you think? Is Big Nora going to roll with Biggie Boy or Augusto Sakai?
Well, before nicknames came into play, I was already going to go with Rozenstruik because that's just the name of a winner. But then Tom told me his nickname, and I'm all on board for that guy.
Okay. So she's rolling with Jairzinho, Biggie Boy, Rozenstruik. I like that pick. You can sometimes pick some on nicknames alone. You know, you got guys like Ben Rothwell, Huggy Bear, and, you know, we've seen others tonight. So, yeah, you can't go wrong picking on a nickname or even the real name, Rozenstruik. If you got strike in there and you're a striker, that's the way to go. That's the way to roll. So I like that pick. So just to run down what we got, I got Montana De La Rosa as my lock, taking Tom Breese against Antonio Arroyo. I have the under 1.5 rounds in the Gregory Rodrigues to Tororovic fight. Didn't really make I got Miguel Baeza. That's for sure almost as close to a lock as you can get. Roman Dolidze, Walt Harris by a KO in the first round. Don't take anything else in that fight. You know what? If you are going to take him to win by a KO in the first round, you might as well take the under rounds at 1.5. Haven't seen the line on it yet, but it's probably around like minus 105, minus 110, something in that range. And then I'm going to take the over rounds in the main event, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Augusto Sakai. Kind of rolling with Jairzinho here to win by a knockout. Wouldn't take him straight up because if it does go the distance, then Sakai does have the advantage in grappling, which will show up on the cards. Tom, just run down your picks again for us real quick.
My picks are Makwan Amirkhani, Tom Breese, Baeza, Roman Dolidze, Marcin Tybura, and Augusto Sakai. My locks of the night are Makwan Amirkhani, Tom Breese, and Roman Dolidze.
Yeah. My other lock, you know, I mentioned it as a pick, but my other lock is the Tororovic Gregory Rodrigues under 1.5 fight to finish inside the distance. So pretty good show. Make sure that if you are watching this right now and you made it this far and you like our content, like, subscribe, check out our website at pickandwinners.org. Add us on Twitter. You know, let us know who you decide to take. If you hate us and you hate our picks, we want to hear it on there in the comments. If you like us and you like our picks, make sure to say that too. Big shout out to Nora. Thank you for being on today. Really appreciate it.